you just recently saw the Garry Shandling documentary.
Yes, yeah, I watched it yesterday.
And what's it called?
And then the Zen Diaries, I think of Garry Shandling's Zen Diaries, or the Zen Diaries of Garry Shandling, something like that. But yeah, no, it's interesting. I think it's fascinating the way Judd Apatow did it. He actually shows his diaries, like his journals, and what he's written over the years. And they actually have, I think, the recording of him, like his first time on stage, because Garry would keep obviously a lot of like logs and journals and recordings and stuff like that. And Judd had access to all of it, and and he talks about how he started as a writer, and it's interesting today. And he talks about back then there was kind of a shortage of like comedy writers that were guys would come in. So he wrote episodes of Welcome Back, Kotter and Sanford and Son, and he's the only writer. And then he said he just didn't feel fulfilled doing that, and he always wanted to do stand up. And he talks about it. He went to the Comedy Store, and Mitzi Shore had a thing where comedy writers shouldn't be comedians and vice versa. That was her thing. Because comedy writers, there's a performance aspect, and they don't have that. And she would tell him, you need to pick, and because you don't really have, a persona on stage yet, you don't have the internet. And he worked on that very hard to, kind of become who he was. And yeah, it's fascinating how he had the Garry Shandling show, and I didn't realize this part of interesting comedy history. Once Johnny Carson was like, all right, I'm kind of done with this. I need. It was Leno and him, back and forth, and it was only those two. Some people thought it'd be Joan Rivers, but once it got to the point where it was Leno Shandling, and that was it. And they weren't sure. And Shandling went, I can't do all of this and the Garry Shandling show at the same time. He was like, he left. He kind of left the competition to take that over again, and which I thought was interesting. And that was before Larry Sanders.
Right.
It's sort of
that was the thing.
interesting.
And the Garry Shandling show was the first. This is the theme to Garry show.
Yeah,
the opening. I love that. It was a precursor to sort of breaking the third wall and all that stuff, which was great.
They mentioned that in the doc, how he
did that.
He innovated that kind of.
Right.
And then, George Burns innovated that.
Well, yeah, I mean, to the point where it was a sitcom,
right?
Where that was the show.
Wasn't it one of the first Fox sitcoms, like when the Fox network was first starting?
Yeah, I think so.
And then, he did really innovative stuff on that show. There's one time where an audience member had a heart attack and then he died, and everyone he went to heaven, and they held, they started out real serious. There's just a guy in the audience laughing really hard, and Gary's like, oh, this guy's great. And then the guy starts choking, and they go to please stand by. And then the whole cast has to deal with it, and the guy comes back as a ghost, and you're like, oh, this is a joke. But they did it. It was really inventive. And then
they got you, in other words. They caught you. Right.
And then the Larry Sanders show was awesome because he just got to sit and make fun of all of the shit that was happening that he obviously recused himself from.
Right.
When he walked away from the Tonight Show.
Right.
And I remember seeing him on the Tonight Show with Jay Leno a couple years after Leno got it and it all settled down, and he was just like, yeah, and Jay was like, yeah, we were both in the day, but you and I were both doing it. And he goes, yeah. And then you kicked Johnny out and he's on the street selling oranges.
Right, yeah.
And it was like, I was like, damn. Shandling called him out he was sitting on the couch right there on his show. And that's the thing I sort of had a lot of respect for him. But like the interview, I mean, all they do is interview all these huge comics like John Favreau and Kevin Nealon. And
it's interesting. There wasn't, it's fascinating to watch them like talk about it. No, I mean, I remember that. But
one of his final roles was as a Hydra agent.
That's funny. But it focuses obviously like any comic does, his insecurities about things and relationships, and then and he said that's where he would get a lot of material. It's like, and if things were going too well, and he's like, I don't, what's going on? Like, there's all that, insecurities that he always had. But very driven to work and get better and all that kind of stuff. It's like it's a lesson in discipline to any comic or somebody working in the entertainment industry, that there's a lot of stick-to-itiveness and a lot of failures and
right,
and ups and downs. But once he hit it, it was meteoric. He had a big rise and kind of stayed there. There was never any lull. It was always his decision to I'm stopping the show, or I need to do something else. So, but a lot of his relationships and things like that. But it's good. I mean, it's definitely worth it. If you're a student or a fan of comedy at all, it's close to a must-see as you can get.
Oh, that's great. All right.